Why are you in Cleveland right
Why you on
now?
the road, bro?
Yeah. I thought you had a big business and lots of employees and kids that would do stuff for you.
Well, you
Well,
know,
there's some things only kings can do.
yeah, that's a shirt. We haven't talked about a shirt for a while.
That's a new one.
Ding,
That's a
ding, ding,
shirt.
ding, ding. There's some
Um,
things only kings can do.
I hire good people, but sometimes I pull out too soon. That anyway.
Try again.
That's a
Not a
soundbite.
good one.
That's a soundbite.
Oh,
That
wah, wah.
Not for Tim
Dot,
liked that one the
dot,
most.
Tim,
Tim's
dot, dot,
grateful.
dot.
Tim's grateful you don't do that often enough.
Tim's like, dot, dot, dot. Oh, Jesus Christ.
But anyway, sometimes you just got to jump back in and see the things that you either used to do that are no longer serving you, or that maybe you stopped doing at one point in time because you're, running lean and just check all that.
I love that you're out there going into it. Every time I ever built something or restarted something, like me when I was flying out to Texas every month to go see if foreclosures would work and start this new business in 2015. Like it was something only kings could do. No one could have done it for me, but it wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fun. It wasn't something that I could have trusted somebody else to do. And sometimes you just gotta, doesn't matter how big your business
You
are or
gotta,
where you in it. If you are too good to do the job of your lowest employee, then you
right?
are going to have a tough time building a big business.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the King's Table podcast. Man, oh man, do we have a good episode. I think everyone is juiced. We have had a really fun couple of weeks. The podcast is doing amazing. Thank you for making us the number one new entrepreneurial business podcast in the entire world. We appreciate it. We're just growing like crazy with our views, guys. We're the number one world's podcast, newest world's podcast. I'm your host, Ashish Nathu. I'm joined by my good friends, of course, the sage himself, Mike Ayala. Where are you at, bro? Where are you calling in?
Cleveland, Ohio.
At the full service Marriott in Cleveland, sitting on his king's throne chair. Of course, Matty Atchison, the czar of commercial, the hero of hospitality, the icon of industrial. What else do I got? And I think that's all I have today.
The icon of industrial is good.
You like that? And of course, the trend spotter himself, who's always right, who proves that the economy has the pundits don't know anything and is always telling us what the world, the contrarian world, the views of the world. So Aaron and Mujastegi, good to see you guys again. Before we get into some topics, today's episode, I'm gonna ask a good question similar to what I asked last time. We'll start it off that way. I want to get into some of the topics and some of the comments that we have because our YouTube channels are blowing up. Our engagement is awesome, and we've asked you guys in the last few weeks, or we keep asking you, please put comments. So we want to make sure that we are feeding into that and answering your questions and engaging the audience that way. It's exactly what we want. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for making us the best new business podcast on all of YouTube, on all of Spotify. Continue to push us farther and farther. We're having so much fun. So let's get into it. Here we go. The question of the day, Mr. Kings, what are your recent victories and what are your recent failures? And what are you learning from your failures? I asked the same question to my kids, but you're a king, so I asked it that way. I asked my kids, what are your peaches in your pits? But I'll
What's
ask
your rose and your thorn, right?
There you go. But for the kings, I'll ask, what have been your victories and what have been your hard lessons and what are you learning that you can share with others about it? I'm going to put Mr. Sage Ayala, go sitting on your throne, looking so studly today, hitting the streets, making shit happen on the road, like all kings need to do once in a while. Mr. Ayala, what are your peaches in your pits?
my peaches. Man, I'll just tie it together in one. So my pit has been like we did a private equity deal almost a year and a half ago with a big private equity group that has like $2 billion of like capital to deploy in the manufactured housing space. And, I've been pretty hands off on certain parts of my business. I have a business partner, and, I've kind of alluded to this recently, but my pit has been, whether it's employees, whether it's business partners. I heard Donald Trump say this years ago. I read this in a book. He said, inspect what you respect, right? And I think, sometimes we were actually just talking about this earlier in the conversation. It's like really easy to just kind of take your hands off and not pay attention to things as soon, especially when we're like in a really busy season. But I wasn't paying enough attention, and this deal was actually going like very far south. Like they're ready to pull the plug. And so that was the pit. But the peach in it is, and this is part of the reason why I've been on the road. I've stepped in and took over that relationship from my business partner. And just last Friday, we got an extension. They're like super excited to be working together. It's just been a total turnaround. So, man, people think it's easy. It's not easy. But what is easy is to lose sight of, what you're doing and get focused on the wrong stuff. And I'm kind of in that season where I'm kind of cutting stuff out that doesn't matter. I'm getting rid of the pit because all I want is the peach. I just want the peach, man.
But you got to put in a lot of work to get peaches.
Yeah, but if we don't, I'm just realizing so many times in my life when I am in a pit, I can look backwards and I can see where, that was my fault. So.
Oh, I love that.
Extreme Accountability. It's a good book about that.
Mr. Mooch, you go.
What's up, my brothers?
What's up?
My people. I feel like we should be Twitch streamers and doing all the other trends now too. What aren't we doing yet? Hey, I was broke last week.
Just like you said you would be.
But I got a giant check on Friday.
God bless.
And all of those loans that were, on the edge of 2 weeks late, and all of those accounts that were like, why didn't you pay this? And I'm like, trust me, I'm going to pay this. Everything got paid today. And now this beautiful like flight path of what I see over the
positive working capital, or you're still negative? Just
oh no,
a big check doesn't mean you're positive.
The positive.
Okay.
It was 9 years in the making, which is all my big deals are. And it was the first of a gazillion checks that are going to be happening with this new thing. So that win was a big win. And I know that I get real honest on here with the ups and downs, but like, staying the course. I got a call from a guy yesterday that was talking about like, hey, he's put everything he has into this project, and he's about to like essentially maybe lose it all. And he's looking for like a lender or a partner or something because he believes he's just a few months away from breaking out to the other side. And I don't think he has a product, people. And sometimes you actually have to say like, oh, this idea didn't work. This plan didn't work. You have to walk away from your investment money and go start again. And sometimes you have to push through. I can't tell people how they can actually make that determination, but I know that I've had both, and I got to push through on this one. And man, it's a big win. It's a big win that that when you get that first check you've been waiting on for a while on a big new project. A thorn, a pit, a bad moment. I guess this started happening a couple months ago, but we're deep in the middle of trying to fix it right now. Is this storage unit that I built in Michigan? Some operators came to me and said, hey, we can do this. We want you to be the money behind it. So I'm the name on the loan. I'm the personal guarantor. I'm the only name on the loan and on the entity. And man, when I got that loan approved and it was just me, I was so stinking proud. Because it was my biggest one that I got to do. And I would like stay on these guys every month. Hey, what's our projections? What do we got? We're not cash flowing yet, but we have money in the bank still. And we had projections until October. And so like, as long as we get to 80% occupancy by October, then we're cash flow positive and the money in the bank is going to cover that monthly mortgage. And my mistake was not getting involved enough, not pushing on them enough, trying to trust them to be the managers. And then, couple weeks ago, my bank in Michigan says, hey, your mortgage didn't go through. And I message everybody right away and go, what happened? We have enough funds in there that cover all of our expenses until October. And the first response was like, Oh, we messed up on the projections. We didn't realize that that property tax check hadn't been taken out yet. So why don't you just put another 160 grand back in the account and then we can make it till October? And I was like, what? So instead, we just fired everybody, took over everything, and now like what Mike is doing with flying to go to see his trailer parks. We had to do that with our storage unit. We're taking over operations and management. And two mistakes I made on that project was like not trusting my gut when I was like, hey, I don't think this is good. I think we should be concerned about this. I think we should be concerned about this. But then trying to trust like, hey, but storage isn't my lane. And so maybe these guys know more than me. Maybe this is industry standard. So big win. One of my big projects that I've been working on is now crushing, is starting to crush some really big milestones, and it's just off to the races. And then one of my learning things was another thing that I was supposed to be just a silent investor on in storage is getting crushed. And even after we take over management and fire everybody and do everything we can, I'll probably be running at a negative 10 grand a month equity or loss for a while on that thing before I can write it. And it's probably upside down because it was built in 2021, 22.
Mm-hmm.
So the good and the bad, rose and the thorn.
I'll be in Michigan Sunday if you need me to go somewhere.
Yeah, man, you can go be my secret shopper.
Dude, drive-bys.
Drive-bys.
I have some follow-up questions to both you guys, but let's keep going and then we can have a good conversation after. Mr. Hero, please tell us, sir.
I'll
The battles, the wins, the failures, the losses on the battlefield. Tell us your peaches and bits.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Similar to Aaron's a little bit. I've raised capital for different deals over the years, deals that I'm a part of, deals that I'm just helping raise capital for. And one that I raised capital for a while back, trusted this operator, the plan and the vision, and, offered my time and helped in any capacity I could beyond, raising a little bit of capital for it. And this operator is not operating in the capacity that they should. And a lot of lessons learned looking back and going, man, I should have done a lot deeper dives into the cap table, where the current financials are at, asking for transparency around the financials, right? Because ultimately I'm putting my reputation and I'm also, putting and exposing individuals into an opportunity that I trust in and I believe in. And obviously there's the big boy, big girl investing clause. It's an accredited investor, opportunity that everybody understands the risks that go along with it. But at the same time, making sure that you really understand just because you can do something doesn't mean you always should. And that was, a good reminder there based on this person that I did trust and that I did think was capable. I have no control over this deal and I have no transparency into things that I really would like transparency into. And therefore, the lesson learned is I'm just not, just because I can raise money for deals, I'm no longer going to raise money for deals unless it's a deal that I'm in control of, that I know how my team operates. I know the integrity that we uphold. I know the ethics that we, employ in everything that we do. And if, there's going to be a downside to a project, I'm going to die on my own sword, not on somebody else's sword. And that was a tough lesson to learn because I've raised a lot of money over the last decade for a lot of different deals. And this was the first one that went, south and is hitting some major turbulence. And so, and in every, dark time, there's always light that comes out of it. Every challenge that I've had, I've always found a way to skill up and to learn from it and to become wiser and more strategic going forward. And this is proving to be another one of those situations. It's forced me to, lean in and have tough and challenging conversations, to get, a lot of frustration, a lot of heat, and rightfully so, thrown back at me, even though, a lot of those decisions are not decisions that I made. It's still a tough learning lesson. And that to me has been something that, I have been losing sleep over it because I care about the people, not because I'm worried about that I did something illegal or wrong or anything like that. But at the same time,
yeah,
right?
letting people down.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's been a challenging project that I've been working through over the last couple months. And then I broke my code, man. I went to McDonald's for the first time in like 4 years and I got fucking sick the next day. I got sick the next
What'd you
day.
eat? I don't
You're-
believe that. What'd you eat?
Well, I mean, if you want me to, let's just say y'all know Fatty Matty makes an appearance every once in a
you,
while.
you
And I'd gotten back from a charity poker tournament, which was an amazing cause, raised tons of money for this little girl to have a brain surgery. It was amazing. And I got home super late. And so I'm like, man, I think
willpower's down.
I think I'm gonna hit McDonald's real quick. Like it sounds kind of good. And mind you, I've been going down the rabbit hole of all of the crap ingredients and shit that is in all these fast food,
You're so funny.
restaurants now. Chick-fil-A, one chicken sandwich has 260 ingredients in it. How the hell does that even make sense? I saw a video literally of a Big Mac getting molten lava poured on it, and the bun and the patty was not even melting. And what do? 12 hours later, I go through the drive-through and I get an extra large Big Mac. I get a double cheeseburger meal. I get or I get a fish fillet, and I get
Crush it.
and an Oreo McFlurry. And your boy crushed it. And let's just say I slept like shit. I woke up probably 10 times throughout the evening. And the next day I felt like crap. And within, no joke, 12 hours, I came down with 102 fever. I'm on the mend, 4 days later, but I was down and out for the count. So that was failure number two, is stay away from fast food. When your body expects good quality and you train it to, operate off of that, man, I felt it. I noticed it. So that was a good slap on the wrist there. But in terms of wins, man, just some really cool things going on with my kids, and seeing how the other day my daughter was getting bullied, and some of the things, man, these kids say to other kids nowadays blows my mind. And yet at the same time, right, I remember, when you're in school, it's always been around, but it seems a little bit different nowadays. And so just, one, seeing how my other daughter showed up for her and upholding our core values and leading and having, one of our mantras in our family is no matter what, we always have each other's backs, no matter what.
What's the issue, Matt? What's the issue that's happening? If you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. So, and this is an 8-year-old, another 8-year-old telling my 7-year-old, this boy doesn't have a crush on you because you're ugly. And she was just going in on my daughter. And I'm a little biased, but my daughter's beautiful and she's so sweet and kind. And it's not my, boisterous daughter that's got a big personality. This is my sweet, kind little Evelyn who it doesn't bother anybody. And so it was great to see, one, how my daughter showed up for her and had her back. And she went, because we always say, there's going to be bullies in school, there's going to be bullies in real life, and there's going to be great people in school and great people in real life. And you have to learn how to navigate life with both of those people. But to see how they showed up for each other, to see how she affirmed to herself that I'm beautiful on the inside and on the outside because of how I treat people. And so it led to some really great conversations in our family. It led to some great growth, right? And just like in the darkness, there's always that light, whether it's in a real estate deal going south, right, in the learning lessons, or it's something that's going on at home or with your family. It led to some really great conversations. And then just small business win. I had one of my lenders within a week of closing on this new 70,000 square foot retail center, pull out on the deal. So what do we do? As Mr. Mike and Aaron were just alluding to, you jump into the driver's seat and you take action immediately. It's default action. And so I was able to get connected with the local community bank there. They gave me a term sheet. They loved the deal. I ended up getting better terms than I was getting from my private lender. And I came to find that they will give me 85% loan to value of the as-built value with the plans that I gave them. So I think I may end up I'm waiting for the appraisal to come back in, but it's likely that I'll end up getting 100% of the purchase price and 100% of the construction costs of this entire project covered by this bank, as long as I wire a couple $100,000 and leave it in a 5.5% yielding CD in their bank, which I'm more than happy to do. It ended up being a massive win when it led to, a big potential downfall. when you go to default action, it's amazing to see what you can come up with in a very short period of time when you bet on yourself and you just start moving towards a solution. So that was a little bit of what's been going on in my week the last few days. And it's been stressful all while being sick. And yet it's been beautiful all at the same time.
You know, I have a quick question. Such a crazy story, Maddie, but when you shared that, like how many times have you guys had something happen in your life where your gut just sank and it ended up being like the best thing ever?
Yeah. I mean,
Totally.
that's really what it was. I was walking away from the building going, everything checked out. I'm good. I'm closing on this deal. And as I'm driving back to where I'm staying, I get a call. I can't do this deal. And I remember just like, I mean, I started sweating immediately. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Your body
oh
reacts.
my God, like what this? No, I'm supposed to be closing this. I got money that's already hard. I've got, tens of thousands into inspections and plans drawn and surveys and maps. And and the one thing I will say that my hotel, journey has taught me, there is a shitstorm every day. And so over time, I got desensitized to shitstorms and going, there's no point of getting stressed out about this because there's going to be one tomorrow and there's going to be one the next day. And this is one thing I preach to my kids of going, the best decisions and the clearest answers come when we're calm. So no matter what happens to you, instead of you being reactive and freaking out, let's just stay calm. And let's think about what the solution is and let's start working towards that. And so that's ultimately every real estate deal, as you guys know, as Ashish knows in his business, every day there's an ordeal that comes up. But if you focus on handling the stress with calmness and focusing on the solution and you jump into immediate action, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
Yeah, I wonder what Ashish was thinking when they furnished this Marriott and all these chairs showed up in this color green.
Look at that ugly color.
I was going to say, I thought he picked that color. What are you talking about?
I don't pick the color. I make what you guys want. Well, good. Go ahead, Mooch.
Have you ever sent them the pictures and be like, are you sure?
Sometimes I do. And sometimes they tell you, you're not the designer. I say, shit. Okay, fine.
You're right. You're right. I'll build the spec.
All right. We're actually doing the Waldorf Astoria in Dallas. They're building that big project and it's going to be a Waldorf. Like they're converting this old historical building and they hired, I don't think the people that they're doing the deal are going to listen to this, but they hired like one of the best designers in the country. The room is so ugly. It's so ugly. And it's a very big project, very high profile, beautiful conversion of a beautiful building. And the room that they designed is just shit. And we're all sitting there. You got like the manufacturing team, the engineers, like, seriously, this is what they came up with? Like, could we please tell somebody to try harder? This looks terrible for a Waldorf Astoria. And
we got the #1 business podcast in the world. Don't be surprised if you hear this podcast.
Yeah, Waldorf's going to fire you now.
We're telling you guys, redesign that room. But
redesign before it's too late. Well, I really quick on the Maddie story, the me story, that when we have to fire the right people, it's always amazing too in hindsight when we go, one, it's like I should have known, or two, like my gut was telling me that, or maybe even three, like what was I thinking? Especially with these, there is a gazillion of like the money raising syndications where guys like, I flipped 4 houses. And I'm doing a syndication to build 19 hotels. Do you want to invest in me? And and he's like, but the returns are going to be great. And we're like, that sounds like a good idea. And there's not enough questions to go like, it's like when I want to build my tower down in Austin, which I will build my tower down in Austin. Right. But there's probably 19 more steps of bigger stuff that I'm going to have to build before I do that, because you can't go from like doing this to doing this. And so many of the syndicators right now in hindsight, we go like, oh, we should have known they had never done anything like that ever before in their life. And that people that have been doing that business plan for 20 years or 50 years aren't doing that. So like, it's hard. It's hard in hindsight to go like, I should have known, and then be able to put the pieces together and be like, of course that didn't work.
Yeah.
Like looking back now, like, of course that person couldn't do it.
Mooch, is it tells you how hungry people are to just put money in deals. They're so hungry. They don't, it doesn't even matter. Right? Well, yeah.
2020, 2021, people were hungry to put money in deals for sure.
Yeah.
It didn't even matter the background, the resume. Just put me in a deal, please put me in a deal.
And people didn't know how to actually look at a deal. And then they would hear like this other person already invested, which sometimes was a lie or sometimes wasn't. And then you go, oh, well, if he invested, I'm in now. Like there's nothing I hate more than syndications gone wrong. There's nothing that makes me angrier than syndications gone wrong. So I'm sure that Maddie's like, I feel your pain, Maddie, because you're like, hey, I didn't do it. But at the same time, you're like, but they did it because I did. Right?
Well, let me wrap this up and then we'll go to the next topic. But I think
do some real stuff.
Well, for me, look, the trend that all of you guys said too is that everything is about people. It's not about smarter strategy. It's not about, oh, you have a better mathematical equation than the other person. It is all dependent on people, right? We all are dependent on other people to do something. And depending on how much that person cares, depending on how responsible that person is, depending on the parameters that we allow that person to take responsibility, we get affected, right? All we can control is how we respond. Mike's flying around the country and like cleaning other people's messes and getting lost in the details and seeing what changes he's got to make. Mooch, you had to go fire a team of people, right? Yeah. Maddie, you've had your issues and you got to go solve a problem that somebody else dropped out last minute. It's all like based on other people's perception. I think that's the journey that most people don't really see as entrepreneurs. You are dealing with problems every single day based on the decisions that other people make and how it affects you. I want to say one thing though. I think there is a lot of power. It's really cool to watch us. We meet every week and we talk throughout the week, but how similar our journey is like right now. Every single week we're sort of like talking, filling each other's gaps and like talking about the same thing. We are all in the weeds right now doing ground level work. Yeah. And I think that's really interesting. I think it's fun. The lesson that I'm learning right now is I think that's where the magic happens too. New level, new devil. So you got to take yourself to another place and then you got to step back a minute and recalibrate. Sometimes that means doing the things we're talking about, the blocking and tackling, the singles and doubles to take you to the next place, right? And the lesson I'm learning is that when people see the leaders do that, I think everybody falls in line. Yeah. That's what I'm learning.
You know what I think one of the challenges is, and I had this realization during COVID. It's like there's wartime leaders and there's peacetime leaders. And I think Ash, you and I've talked about this before, but I'm a wartime leader. In fact, when things are really good, I kind of need to stay out of the way because I just break shit.
We go break shit.
Yeah. But I think this just kind of shows, we were talking about this on the last episode, the season. I think this just kind of shows what season the world is in right now because the wartime leaders are stepping up and stepping in because maybe the wars are getting closer and closer together because it wasn't that long ago we were fighting for our life during COVID. Right. But I think that's the reason why you see common trends happening. And I don't think it's just the four of us. I think the wartime leaders are stepping in.
Absolutely.
And saying, hey, listen, you can see it all over the news. Like things might be really great on the other side of this, but I think we're in a wartime season right now, even though there's not some, big issue necessarily going on, but I think we're in a wartime.
I agree. I think getting back to basics and showing people and teams and customers and orgs that, hey, us as leaders, we can get in, we can do the blocking and tackling and we'll fix it. I think is a trend that people need to see. Get off your high horse, get off your ego. I had a big blow up last week. I had a huge win yesterday, guys. I had an amazing board investor meeting. It was very successful. After a board meeting that's successful, I always say to our team, like, we live to die another day. But it's a very good practice I think people should have is to set up meetings, whatever company you're running, whether it's real estate or a business, is to have some kitchen cabinet or some group of people that you report to at a frequency that forces you to get organized and really know your business and learn how to communicate it, whether you're publicly traded or you're audited or you're trying to exit or not. It's such a good discipline. But anyways, I I assumed something happened last week with one of my partners, and we all have different partners and things like that. But man, the lesson that I learned and how bad that one simple conversation in trying to build trust right now is our theme. Like we're trying to build trust, we're trying to align. One simple 6-minute conversation derailed us completely, derailed the entire company completely. And it's just the lesson that I learned is like, you really have to stay calm. You know, we have to be able to, as leaders, ask curious questions without putting people on the defensive. And I think that I probably was too assertive in the way I was asking questions and made them feel like they were on the defensive. And then they responded, and it literally created a huge bomb. So we have a responsibility in that. And so it was fun after 1 week of cooling down to have a calm, professional discussion. One of these people is very close to me personally and professionally. We started the business together, so it's been a long journey. And so it's very easy to feel like you're on the same page and just the simplest thing can derail you. I thought it was about a business issue. He thought it was about a personal issue between the both of us. And so you learn that you got to be careful in assuming things. Point being, everything is about personal relationships. Everything is about people. Everything is about influence and culture and what we do, what we say we're going to do, and the example we set as leaders. So that's what's going on my side. Let's do it. What else? Anything else on this topic before I get into some comments?
Let's hear what our peeps are saying on YouTube.
Let's do it. So let's go. We're recording here, episode number 35. Can you guys believe it? 35. Crazy. Let's go to episode number 33. We have some good comments there. This was from a few weeks ago. Of course, Cody is continuously giving us comments. Cody, shout out to you, bro. Hello, Austin, Texas real estate. Once again, you guys deliver great conversations, great insight with Chris. That was the episode I missed. You guys like that episode? That was good, right?
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun bringing in guests.
Yeah, great news spin on somebody doing some industry stuff that we're not doing.
Yeah, so Debbie, hello, Austin. Brad Chariot. We don't have too many questions on that episode, but want to call you guys out for leaving comments. The last episode was one of our biggest episodes that has gotten the most views. So we're doing really well on that. And we have
Anthony's
some really good
comments, my
topics.
favorite on that one.
Yeah, so let's go through that. So Anthony, you want to go through him first?
Yeah, it just really, it's like what we all hear about in our life. He said, this podcast has lots of potential. That was as deep as he went. Like the Anthony, fireworks behind Mike. Thank you for being a fan. He didn't say we were good. He didn't even say he liked it. He just said we had potential, and we'll take it. We'll be the bad news bears, and we have to be.
We'll take it. That's a compliment, I think.
My mom always told me I was special.
Yeah, lots of potential. Thank you, Anthony.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to live up to the potential, guys.
So we had a couple. So he said lots of potential. We had Debbie saying, thank you for making up for missing last week with a really long episode. Yeah, now officially we've missed 2 different weeks since we've come out, and we're sorry for that. But she said, hey, you guys went over an hour, and most of the time I get bored, but we stayed on. And then she said, I've represented a few investors who bought rentals recently, and they bought out a first-time home buyer, but investors are paying cash, and only one paid over list. So he says, so the investors aren't the cause of the increased prices. That was one of the topics. So she agreed with that. She talked about the fake news that home buyers are hearing that's discouraging people. So I think she was appreciated that. What I liked, Yansonero, says the Fed share clip you played, he goes, honestly, I have not followed it that closely. I don't recall them talking about dual mandate before. I'm fairly certain they didn't talk about it a year ago. I felt like the sentiment was before they're going to raise rates, it's going to cost jobs. Now they're saying they have to lower inflation and the dual mandate. And hats off to you, Maddie, for finding that clip, listening to that clip, and bringing it out, because it really is what we do try to do here is give all sides and give the news and help find. We don't want people to have to go listen to every Fed report and read all the news on Bloomberg and read all the things at the other places. We want to be able to take the things that we think are important. I also would have said that I loved that they were bringing up the dual mandate. So we could pull back to a couple episodes before that, but that was the last couple episodes for the commenters. I only see 9 likes on the episodes, guys, and 4 of the people that liked the episode are on this podcast right now. So we got 500 listeners out there, guys. The pause for 1 second, and if this is decent, if it's better, if it has potential, like Anthony says, hit the like button, make us feel a little bit of that little endorphin rush, so we know you guys are out there listening.
Yeah, and as we said, we're getting our ass handed to us, so we need some encouragement.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, there's a comment from Yansuru 3 weeks ago that I want to read because this is a really good conversation. I don't know if you guys remember this, and you need to go back to this episode 3 weeks ago. He asked what he thought was a controversial question. We answered it, and then 3 weeks later, he came back and said, I really appreciate the way you guys answered that, and has another question. So I want to read this really quick. He said, America has transitioned into a just-in-time society. Gone are the days of huge warehouses of goods and weeks of inventory. Manufacturers produce what's only required. Today, think of the toilet paper debacle of 2020. A surge in demand, although unnecessary, overwhelmed the distributors in making TP. Imagine what a real actual event like the Baltimore Bridge could do in the supply chain. Only time will be able to tell what a TP emergency of 2024 will be. If anyone knows, fill me in. I'll clearly come out. Aaron said that all the real estate agents should concentrate on becoming listing agents, but I think a big part of the value of current listing agents comes from the MLS. If NAR is losing its value on the whole and new process is likely to emerge, with or without NAR, listing agents can't just be the gateway to the listing platforms, or the lawsuits in the market will come after their commissions next. I don't know what will happen next, but it's exciting times, blah, blah, blah. Finally, the conspiracy theory of the day. Here we go. The economic struggle right now is with inflation. The big stubborn part of inflation is housing cost. NAR has fought off the DOJ and other lawsuits for years. Is it a coincidence that now is the time that they lose the lawsuit? Most news outlets predict that the end of the 5 or 6% commission and lowering of most home prices. Is that a coincidence or no? I'll put, thanks, buddy. But he says, I will put on my tinfoil hat and wait for a response.
Yeah.
But guys, what do you think?
We had like 3 topics there.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, he's engaged, baby.
So
he's giving all of us.
So the last one was the commission interest rate thing. What was the second one?
I don't know if he's asking us a question or just maybe stream of consciousness here. But let's focus on the conspiracy theory that he maybe wants us to address, that is there a reason why the NAR is dealing with these lawsuits now?
It's interesting. I think I hadn't thought of it that way. Like as we're fighting inflation, are there other things so here's the reality. The Fed determines what happens with like inflation policy, not actually Trump or Biden. Like Trump or Biden can actually decide to put more money into the economy or take it away. So like they can create inflation. Like the president, the government, they can like create inflation, but they can't get the Fed to do what they want. The Fed gets to do what they want. That's the way that it works. They can't just be fired. That's why you're trying to get somebody in there to do that. So as much as I would like to blame politicians I don't like and praise the ones that I love, it's all the Fed for that. But what they could do in theory is other stuff. If they want inflation to go up, they can do student loan forgiveness. Inflation will go up if you forgive student loans. If people, instead of paying $500 a month in student loans, now they can pay for whatever they want, inflation goes up, right? If they actually make people pay back loans that they haven't had to make payments on in a while, that would make inflation go down because people will have less money to spend on the other stuff. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say like maybe this is why maybe this is why it's fighting now, but the timing of all of it did start in 2020. Even though they've been fighting for commissions for years, NAR got really aggressive in 2020 trying to make sure that people couldn't list houses without being a licensed agent. So I think it is a coincidence, even though there probably are some stuff that people are doing to try to impact inflation or not in other ways. I think it's a coincidence. I mean, one of the little comments that he put in there is like, will people even stop using the MLS? I think the big prediction is there will be no reason to use the MLS in the future. People will use Zillow, or they will use realtor.com, or they will use a service that they like, that more eyeballs are on, because there isn't a need to pay the NAR to do it. And the NAR is going to be, these big brokerages are struggling with how they're going to pay the bills. All of them know what they owe now. None of them know how they're going to pay it. None of them have the money to pay it. So they're going to be asking people to help them or taking out loans to do it. So I will not be surprised if in 5 years the NAR is gone and people aren't using MLSs anymore. So my two quick tinfoil hat responses.
We talked about this earlier in the show, but the Rently thing, and I brought this up, I think off camera a week ago or whatever, but Debbie actually in a previous episode brought up, would I want somebody coming through my house? And I'm curious of your take on this after you've had some time to think about it. But when Debbie asked that question, like, would I want somebody touring my house without an agent, there, there's like a resistance to change in the way that things have been done. But my answer to that question that Debbie asked a while back is like, I wouldn't have a hesitation if there was a system like Rently that you showed us for our tenants. I mean, I'm comfortable giving tenants access because Rently has their driver's license. They have a 1-hour code. They've pre-screened them. So I'm curious, do you have any ideas of what's going to get disrupted with all of this? Because like we're thinking about all the negatives, but there's a lot of positives in this.
Yep. So I think is going to happen. What happens with Rently is if you drive up to a house and you see my for rent sign outside, it says you can actually tour this house right now. People get on their phone, they type in the address. It says it rents for $1,400. They stop the car, they go to the front door, and the lockbox says, like, hit my QR code. That QR code like sends them to a link and says, do you want to tour this house right now? Send us a selfie in front of the house. Send us a picture of your driver's license. We're going to charge $1 on your credit card. You get their info, you get their action. They give you a code to be able to enter. So that's why would it not work like that for buyer's agents? Would you rather, as a buyer, do that and see it right now while your family's with you in the car, while you're out, while you're in the neighborhood, and see if it's even worth seeing again? Or would you rather call your agent and say, please set up a showing for me in the future? Right. So one, I think every buyer is going to actually like that better. Could I actually tour properties without my agent trying to tell me what to do, without my agent trying to get me to make an offer, without my agent trying to say like, hey, if you don't offer on this one, like without my agent getting tired of showing me 20 houses? Like most people would love to go see houses without their agent present. First of all, again, like, so that's the first side of it. Now, Debbie's question is, what if it is your occupied house? So the answer would be, it depends on how bad I want to buy it. Some people list their houses and they only allow showings during the open house. Some people say, I don't want people ever in my house. They won't even let real estate agents show their house. And so they aren't as motivated to sell it. And there's a better chance they're not going to sell it because they're like, no, I'm actually not allowing. Have you guys ever had that experience where people are like, no, I'm not going to allow showings. I'm only going to allow it on Sunday, and you have to be there when you're present. There's going to be no private tours. And then it goes to where there is tours, but the people have to have their buyer's agent with them. We do flat rate listing services in Texas, and we'll commonly get people that call us and say, I don't have an agent. Can we show the house? We'll have them send us a picture of their driver's license and a credit card, and we'll give them the combo box code, which is just a 4-digit number that doesn't change. And we stay on the phone with them when they walk through and they walk out. And if they write a contract, they're not paying a buyer agent commission. Occupied is, so yes, if you're leaving during the day, there's a couple things you can do with some of those electronic shutoffs. You can allow showings during certain times or not. You could make them get approved like the day before and have to schedule it so you know. So if you're about to go to work, hey, somebody's going to come show my house today, then you're going to clean up a little bit more. But those machines also let you decide when to turn it off and on. I think for the most part, people are going to want to do it. I think that also if people have a lot of stuff, if you got a bunch of gold in the house, you got a bunch of stuff you don't want people to see, you've got dogs and things like that, there is an extra complication, but it depends on how bad you want to sell your house and how much you want to sell it for. I don't think it's going to be a breaking point. Some people it will be. Some people will say, no, I want an agent there. I want my listing agent always present to show my house. But the house will sell for more and faster if you allow someone to just remote view it whenever they want.
You know what I'm thinking about as I'm hearing Aaron say this? Like my brain is flashing back to like the 40s, 50s, 70s, and like the grocery stores in Manhattan and the mafia coming around and making people pay them a certain percentage. That's the NAR. Yeah. It's the mafia. Like
Yeah.
if I want to show my house, you know what's great about what you're saying? Like if there was a platform like that and buyers just wanted to go around and I scan it, like the information's free, you get to know who the buyers are. Like they're just the mafia.
Yeah. The newer system, I think most people actually appreciate the newer system.
But the transparency drives prices down.
Transparency. No, it won't. Like it'll drive like the listing costs down, but the more people that can show the easier you make it for buyers to buy your house,
Yep.
the more offers you're going to get.
Yep. Which
The more people that like, because you could drive by a house, say, oh, I want to have my agent come show me this later. And then you go drive, and then you keep driving and you go somewhere else and you never come back and show it. You're not excited about it anymore. The easier you make it for buyers, the more buyers there are, the more prices go up.
100%. I mean,
Interesting.
if you think about how many listings are probably undersold on price because of the additional steps and human components of those steps that are in that equation, I am 100% in agreement with Aaron. The more bodies you can drive through, the less friction you can create, the more demand and the more competition you create, which ultimately drives values up, in my opinion. I don't think we'll see a lot of slippage in values just because that component of the process is going away. And I think I mean, this is just one aspect of an industry that's been long in the tooth. This is the way we do it, and this is the way it's been done for so long. It always reminds me of that one story where the woman is cooking the turkey or cooking the ham for Thanksgiving, and she cuts off the two ends of the ham and puts them in the oven, and she puts it in there, and she continues to get asked why she did it this way. And she's like, well, this is the way grandma did it. And then she asked her grandma, and oh, well, that was the way my grandma did it. And then she asked the great grandma, and she goes, oh, I just couldn't fit the damn turkey inside or the ham inside of the baster, so I just cut off both ends. And they thought it was some spectacular way of doing this process, but it was just the way it had been done forever. And people hadn't questioned, why do you do it this way? And so I think more industries, and this is just one example, right, of industries questioning, wait, I know we've been doing it for this way forever, but why are we doing it this way? And is this actually the best way of doing it to get the best outcome? And so now that this is, where it's at today, I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's going to be something that hurts the industry as a whole. It's going to create innovation, and people are going to start asking questions of how do we get to the same outcome, if not better, by just doing it a different way. And I think there are inefficiencies in this particular process that have been exposed. And I think there's going to be a lot of other industries that are long in the tooth where you got the mafia involved, and it's just been the way it's been forever, and you got to pay to pass go. And we're going to see more of this type of stuff come up, especially as technology gets integrated and becomes so much more efficient and easily accessible, which creates efficiencies for the consumer, which at the end of the day, we as Americans are a consumer-driven economy. And therefore, we're going to continue to look at some of these old, archaic industries and find new and better ways of doing it. I don't think it's a bad thing.
The only people bitching are realtors. Nobody else cares.
I was going to say, man, the only people I hear bitching about it is all of the, old, threatened, concerned buyer's agents. I don't hear too many listing agents complaining about it. The only people that I hear crying about it are honestly buyer's agents. And those are the people that, if you're that threatened, then you better get back in the lab and start figuring out how you can add more value to your industry and your space, so that way you don't have to worry about those things. And if anything, you should be excited because it's going to get the people that aren't adding any value to the industry out of your way anyways.
Like, let's be real. It is a big deal for buyer's agents. Like, buyer's agents should be concerned.
100%.
So instead of being angry, find the solution, become listing agents, become the extra value. Like, the time for being upset about it's over. I mean, you don't have to believe my prediction or our predictions, but there is a prediction that buyer's agents will become few and far between. So you can either think it's not and prove us wrong, or you could, hey, just in case we're right, try to pivot to something that isn't going to become few and far between.
It's such a mindset. Just I know you want to go here, Ash, but even with the FTC non-compete, you're going to have a lot of business owners that are going to be
do it.
Well, so you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be whining and complaining about it. But the minute that I saw that, I've had a lot of non-competes with employees. The minute I saw that, I didn't start thinking about.
So hold on, Mikey, frame the topic.
Well,
here.
I just want to say this really quick before I want to set, because it's like, if you just think about this is such a bad mindset for realtors to like get so defensive when I'll let you tee it up. But this non-compete thing, I'm not like sitting here thinking like, how am I going to script this on Instagram on why I should be able to do a non-compete? It's done. Like, it's beyond my control. Just freaking move on and let's deal with it. And I'm still going to hire amazing people, and I'm still going to give them all of my secrets. There's nothing new to man. It's such a whiny baby mentality. Move on.
Okay,
now
Mooch.
Now you could tee it up.
All right. Well, I'm gonna tee this up. I love it. I love the fiery baby. I love it. Hold on. Why can I not share? I love it. Okay.
Mike almost punched you in the face.
He digitally punched me in the face.
He digitally punched you in the face. He digitally bitch slapped you. It was crazy.
But he was passionate. He needed to get it out. He's right. He's tired of people bitching. All right, let's talk about people bitching. FTC votes to ban non-compete agreements. This article is from The Hill. The FTC, when was this, Mike? I don't know, or who put this in here? Mooch?
I put it in here. So it just happened.
Okay, so a couple days ago. Yeah, go ahead. If you want.
This happened yesterday. So so non-compete agreements are an agreement that when you go to work for a company, that there's something that says like, hey, even if we fire you, you cannot go to work for somebody in this industry for 12 months or 24 months, or you can't ever work for one of our competitors, but usually it's a certain amount of time. Hey, you can't do this business anymore for 12 or 24 months if we are going to pay you, because you are going to learn some of our trade secrets, and they don't like the idea of doing that. So now it says yesterday, they banned it. It's going to go into effect in 120 days or 120 days from the public after it's published. So it's going to happen soon. Sometime in the next,
it goes into effect January 1, 2025.
Thank you. So January 1, 2025, non-compete agreements aren't valid anymore. So why does this matter? So there was like I remember when Tesla had one of the self-driving car guys that they had invested money in him. They were paying him a ton of money. They moved him from somewhere else. Like, it was all on the back of Tesla. Maybe it was Tesla or Google or one of them. I think it was actually Google, the Google self-driving car.
It's all of them. I'm sure they all do it.
But Uber went and stole this guy and said, hey, we're going to steal you. We're going to come do self-driving cars for Uber. Uber started to like build out what their self-driving program was going to be. But either Google or Tesla was able to reach back and go, no, we get to sue you because that was actually, he has a non-compete. He's not able to come compete against us. And it killed Uber's self-driving technology, even though Travis for the longest time was like, no, once we have self-driving cars, that's when this thing goes through the roof. That's actually related to one of our other articles if we get to it. So non-compete agreements are good. I think they're good. There's always caveats to it. They've been illegal in California for a long time. So they say you can have them, people can sign them, but you can't enforce them. One of the differences of this is now it's saying like, hey, just for someone to come work for you, the labor market is tough, which makes them that means they're admitting the labor market's tough, even though they're saying unemployment is down so low. So the labor market's tough. And so if I fire somebody, I can't prevent them from going and getting a job again. That shouldn't be fair. Or if they don't like where they work, they shouldn't be prevented from going to get a job. The caveat is going to be if you pay them more than $150,000, you can still get them in a non-compete. So what's that going to do? The people that are threats to you, you're going to pay them more than $150,000 a year. And then you can still put the non-competes on it. And the people that aren't shouldn't be able to compete with you anyway. My only story about non-competes is when I started my flipping company out in 2009 in California, buying foreclosures on the courthouse steps. I was the only person doing it, right? There was two other guys doing it. I was the only person doing it at scale. And I was hiring people off of Craigslist. Facebook Marketplace didn't even exist. People off of Craigslist. I would hire baristas. I would meet people at Starbucks and hire them. I would hire all these people. And I would teach them to drive houses, to bid at auction, to like move my money around, to do different things. And for the longest time, I had people only doing specific lanes because I didn't want them to go put me out of business. And then I taught them how to do the whole thing because that's how you scale a business and become on top of it. and all of them are went to work at Blackstone, right? So all these people that were baristas when I hired them were the ones that were putting me out of business later in 2012. They were taking my documents and my paperwork to those. So non-competes, I think I get the pain and the frustration from it. What could I have done different? Probably paid the people more, made them happier. With all of it, and maybe they would have stayed. So I don't think it's a nothing burger. I think for tech, it's going to be a bigger deal. I think for places like Tesla and things like that, I kind of think they should have made the salary cap like 250 though, because 150 is almost nothing now compared to when these things first came out. So that's my first take on it. My understanding of the law. That's it.
Did you guys know that nobody at Amazon makes more than 160K base? Nobody. It's a company policy.
I did not know that.
I just found that out. One of the ex-employees of Amazon told me most senior level people at Amazon, they only get paid $160,000 base salary. They get comped in terms of like distribution of shares and all that make up your market value. But from a salary perspective, which then vest but they pay you, let's say your salary should be 250. They make up that extra 90 with shares that you then slowly vest, but you only take away 160 every single year and then never increases. Fascinating strategy. Thought I'd share that.
I did not know that. Yeah, I think the FTC, you summed it up perfectly, right? It doesn't apply to business partnerships and things like that, so that's still enforceable. It doesn't apply to the caveat of the salary cap. I think it's honestly a good thing in the sense that I think it's a win for small business and entrepreneurship in the sense that it creates more incentive for people that really are looking to bet on themselves and use the learnings of their environment. Now, there's a way I think of going about it, and there's a big gray area here, right? If you're going and, working with a competitor and you're taking trade secrets and you're doing things that really are in the gray area, right? I would question looking in the mirror and saying, if you say you're somebody of integrity and ethics, are you going about doing this and pursuing an opportunity the right way? But that being said, all is love in, what do they say? All is love in
Capitalism.
or war and whatever. But I do think that, in most courts, it was unenforceable as it was. I don't know and haven't heard of too many cases where non-competes really actually were upheld in a large scale magnitude type of event that, really did massive damage to a company. And if anything, it creates a little bit more accountability and incentive for the organizations that are employing people to raise your game of standards of the people how you're treating them, of the opportunities that you're giving them, right? It puts business owners on notice. And while I'm a business owner and I don't want anybody taking my stuff and going and using it to either compete against me and impact my bottom line or to go and work with a competitor, I do think it creates another component of accountability for employees and companies to make sure that individuals are doing what they should be and can be doing to retain quality talent.
So when I had my plumbing and heating business, the union would come to us constantly and try to get us to unionize. And I've always been like total free market guy. And I kind of feel like a non-compete. Okay, I'm a business owner. I've had non-competes before. I get it when it comes to, like Aaron was saying, tech companies and like IP, intellectual property. But honestly, like one of my early bosses told me we owe it to the next generation to teach them because somebody taught us. And information and knowledge is just free. And so the reason why I brought up the union thing is I always refused to go into the union. And I understand why unions exist. Back in the day when slavery was abolished and then we created I've said this so many times, W-2 is just legalized slavery, really. It's a mindset issue around it. And I don't like that mindset, by the way. And I honestly think that non-competes, again, set IP aside, set all that stuff aside, because I think that's fair. Nobody should be able to steal something that you invented. But honestly, like if you have an employee working for you, you owe it to train them. A consultant told my first business partner one time, because he was bitching about, he said, well, I'm just tired of like spending all this time training all these employees and then they just leave. And the consultant looked at him and said, well, the worst thing that you could do is not train your employee and have them stay. And I thought that was such a great mindset, because it is such a problem. And so I'm actually a fan of this whole thing when it comes to non-competes, because honestly, I don't feel like when I say W-2 is legalized slavery, I also have this, if somebody doesn't want to be married to me, I don't want to be married to them. If
That's
somebody
true.
doesn't want to work in my organization anymore, I should not be able to keep them from earning a living for the next 3 years of their life. And again, I'm a capitalist, like I'm a business owner, but there's a part of this that I love, because I just don't think that by me agreeing to take a job in an organization that I feel like I should have to stay there the rest of my life, or be concerned about quitting and not being able to go earn a living.
I thought that was very fascinating part of the article. I didn't even think about it that way, Mike, until I read that. Is like, it is, quote, it is so profoundly unfree and unfair for people to be stuck in jobs they want to leave, not because they lack better alternatives, but because the non-compete precludes them to another firm. They didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I only thought about it from the perspective of the employee. And in California, we don't even, non-competes are like toilet paper here. I think
They
you
make
can
people
try
sign
it.
them to scare them. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a threat tactic. You really, even when you do it as an employer, you know that it's not going to get withheld. So you're just using it like a scare tactic. So fascinating discussion. I think from an employer's perspective, we already have to behave as if, but I think it makes it more challenging for the employer if everyone is a non-compete and you can't trust that the people that have an incredible amount of company information won't just one day say, screw you, I'm going somewhere else, or I'm going to go do this on my own. What level of transparency do you provide at those levels? Aaron, you were alluding to this, but all companies have, I won't say trade secrets, but their own little methods and processes and all that. What's fun about this is like no one's really inventing anything anymore. Unless you're tech or like in pharma or in bio, like none of you guys are doing anything scientifically, or me. None of you guys are inventing anything. So it's really not about like proprietary information. It's just about I think that's just fascinating of what do you share with people? How much do you really silo information within your organization, and what are you really trying to protect? Right.
Back to my comment about realtors whining and business owners whining. I actually think that, like, as a business owner, this should cause us to, if we fall in the camp of this isn't fair, people are going to steal my secrets, people are going to work for me for 3 years and leave. Well, this should really kind of like bring us back to what we were talking about a couple episodes back on values and hiring. This should cause us to not bitch and complain about it, but rather pause for a minute and get really clear on the type of people that, we want in our organizations, and make sure that we hire according to those values, because
Totally.
you're not going to be able to force them to stay in your organization. And really, if they want to leave, do you really want them there? Like, it's just crazy to me.
Well, let's keep going. I love this topic. I think I want to go to this Social Security. Really fascinating article. I don't know a lot about the foundational elements of Social Security and where we're at. We all know that Social Security is going to run out of money, and there's a big gap in funding. It is a line item in the U.S. budget that is an entitlement that is really hard to eliminate, and likely anyone that what do you call it, campaigns against this entitlement is likely going to lose. So this thing just keeps on growing. So here we go. Swing state voters are open to several ideas to keep Social Security open. 77% of registered voters in the 7 states that will decide the 24 election like the idea that billionaires will boast Social Security tax.
Yeah.
Scroll
down to the chart.
This?
There's a chart down here. You go a little bit further.
Yeah.
They're right here. So like, here's what people thought the best way to save it is. right? So 77% of voters. So a high percentage said they want to raise taxes on billionaires. Most people they're okay with that. How about tax people making more than $170,000 a year? No. Trim benefits of higher. So they said yes. So these were all the
No,
solutions.
50. Yeah, more than 50% of people said these three things.
Raise the retirement age. No one liked that one. Change the cost of living formula. No one likes that one. So I've talked way too much, so I'm not going to comment, but I threw this article in here because I thought it was the implication of or what that says about society or anything else when 77% of people are saying the rich guys should bail us out. The rich guys should pay for it. I think there's so many more implications or discussions that could happen with this. I thought it was really interesting to prop up.
It's absolutely fascinating. We're definitely not increasing the retirement age. You saw what happened in France. You guys watched that, right? A year ago or so. You increased the retirement age by a year or two in France. There was full-on war in Paris. Freaking people got up at arms and literally burned the whole city down. It was insane. I do not see that happening.
We were just redoing our deck for manufactured housing. And I found a stat, 37% of retirees have less than $100,000 in their bank account.
Mm.
Jesus. Well, that's why you got to go to the rich guys to solve the problem. They're the ones with the money.
I guess I will say something.
Let me ask you a question. When Maddie has an investor who says, I can't do that deal, you think he calls a poor guy? He calls a rich guy. He calls Mooch. He calls Mike. Sorry.
I don't like the idea of man, I'm a capitalist at heart. I wasn't gonna say anything, but it's just the thing that says about society of just that idea of the rich people should, and not partially, an overwhelming majority of people yes, the people that have been the most successful in the world inside this capitalist society should actually be paying the bill for this mistake that the government made so many years ago. And the way that they said it, who even knows the fault of it? But I hate that idea of because what's a more practical way? It could be paying into stuff differently. It could be raising the retirement age. You obviously can't do those things because when do you start it and why would it be fair? Unless you said now you were going to do it for people that were 30, people that are 30 now can't retire till they're 75. Maybe people won't freak out because people in their 30 aren't thinking that far ahead. But anyway, yeah, the quick thing of let the rich people pay for it. Let's not actually fix the system. Let's just have the rich people pay for it. I hate that mindset.
Just stop sending money to Ukraine and then the rich people can keep their money and it'd be fine.
That should have been a question on there.
Thought?
Stop funding Ukraine instead.
Well, we just passed another 61 bill for them, so.
We haven't even solved the Hawaii problem.
I think, I forget what the total sum is for Ukraine now. Let's
see.
And if you can look that up, I think it's got to be with this new package. I think it's north of 170 billion that has gone to Ukraine, and Hawaii got $700. East Palestine, which I think they just had a settlement on that. I forget what that ended up being, but when you look at all of the problems we got going on within the U.S. and the egregious spending of sending hard-paying, our hardworking, tax-paying American dollars to protect other borders, and we've got what's going on in our own border. There's just so many issues that are going on within the U.S., and we're so excited to send billions of dollars, to Ukraine. I can understand, some of the money that's going to maybe Israel and Taiwan, but there's just something so off about what's going on with Ukraine and the amounts, the billions that we have sent over there. I'm curious. I heard an argument the other day of, and this is it's a tough line to draw. I'm curious where you guys think it should be drawn, but how much of American tax-paying dollars should be allocated to go across continent lines into other countries? We love being the world police, but when we have so many issues now that are front and center, you cannot ignore them anymore. What does that look like? And what are your thoughts around, should there be a threshold or an allocation ratio of our tax-paying dollars going to foreign issues versus addressing all of the challenges and issues that we're experiencing here within the US?
This is not, when I think of that, I just think of zero-based thinking. And which is the idea of like, forget everything we know now and basically kind of start over. And I don't think you can do that with, the foreign aid budget, but just cut it in half. That'd be a good first step.
Yeah.
Well, it goes
the steel man to this, right? The steel man argument is, if we're having to fight a battle for American security, I would rather send money than lives.
Agreed.
Right? And maybe that's selfish. I would rather Ukraine lives instead of American lives. And so if I thought all the money was actually getting spent for that, I would probably feel better about the whole thing. Or maybe some of it is. So I think it's okay. So I would say it's okay to send foreign aid for something if you're fighting a war or a battle that is for American security that needs to be fought, and you're doing that instead of sending troops. I love the idea of actually paying someone else's military to fight our wars instead of our people fighting it. The problem with Ukraine is we don't know if that's what's really going on. There's way too many things to show that it might not be. What we have to do in business is we have to do the critical path or put out the fire in front of us. We're like, we have got 20 problems to solve. What's the one we should solve today? Because if we don't, everything else is going to become a catastrophe. And I, you know what? And I'm not going to say what I think that it is for the U.S., whether it is homelessness or whether it is Hawaii or whether it is, Russia taking over the world or Israel. But what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to say, like, this is the most important problem that if we don't solve now will become uncontrollable. And then you solve problems in order. So maybe they're saying, hey, no, if Russia takes Ukraine, it's all over for us. Nukes are on our back door and we're dead. And so that's why they focus it over there. But I don't think that's really what's happening. But yeah, I guess that just the only steelman argument is if a war needs to be fought, then sending aid to go fight our enemies is legit. But the more I go into like the history about Ukraine and Russia and all of that and the freaking Tucker Carlson Putin interview, man, I don't think we should be over there. I don't think it's the battle we should be sending money to, because I don't think it is protecting American citizens by sending it.
I think one of the reasons, did you guys see that video by Mike Waltz, one of the congressmen, and he had a bag of bushings, like just a little bag like this big of bushings. And he was talking about how that bag of bushings for some jet cost $90,000 for a little bag of like metal bushings. Those bushings couldn't have cost more than, $10,000 to make. Probably $1,000.
Right.
I think the reason why I'm sharing this is like, I think the reason why this thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger has nothing to do with security, but it has everything to do with like what's on the other side of that money being spent.
Yeah.
And, the amount and granted, I think a lot of that money ends up back in the hands of Americans
I agree.
through, defense contractors and, just the amount of, when we were talking about toilet paper earlier and supply chain, just think about the amount of money that vendors make. 74 billion gets sent to Ukraine, and how much of that comes back to the US that, pushes back to our GDP and everything else, which none of us ever get to really see. But I think that's why nobody's having that conversation around it, is because it's actually fueling a big part of our GDP. And I think that's why everybody just, keeps doing what they're doing.
To steel man that, I think that's the problem though, right? Like, how many employees does the US government have? Like 10 million employees, either direct or indirect employees. And as you guys know, at some point when you run a business or you run a company or you run a country, it gets to a place where zero-based thinking is just too difficult to start all over again. It's easier just to figure out the least path of resistance on the Social Security thing is like, just go to the billionaires, make them pay for it. To try to rebuild it from scratch, it's going to be too hard. I was trying to find a map as you were talking, Mikey. There's a map that I was using for a presentation about all the global resources and every major resource of every country in the world. And when you map it out and you look at the United States and where they're at, man, I wish I could find this. I'm sorry, I can't. But you look at the geography, and we did this a little bit in the Middle East. Where is Israel in the middle of everything? And you look at the United States, you look at what Britain did, right? When they were in power of the world. Where are the resources in the world? Where are the natural resources in the world? And then you understand, man, if we're not in influence and control of those places, your livelihood can significantly be compromised. And so I don't know if we have a choice to be, not to be the policeman of the world. I don't think that's the right question. I don't think we have a choice. I think the choice is what lifestyle we want. And the Americans have made that choice. Is my point.
I don't think it matters because at the end of the day, like it's just getting us focused on what they want us to focus on. The reality is, like, money doesn't exist anyway, and they're just going to keep printing more money. And then we're all going to bitch about where the money's going, but none of it's real anyway.
Well, I think the point we're making, right, about this whole thing is like, are there better, more cost-effective ways of accomplishing the same goal? But at some point, that doesn't matter because you're so far ahead of your skis. The system is so big that common sense and logic goes out the window.
I actually think that common sense and logic isn't out the window. I think they know exactly what they're doing. It's not. It's everybody that's just, the reality is they don't need to tax the billionaires to pay for Social Security. They could just keep doing what they're doing. But like, it's all about votes. It's just pandering.
It's a good point, right? Like they really, they just keep printing. They're trying to, but I mean, they are trying to fight inflation now, but they just keep printing to handle it. If you're going to tax the billionaires, you should do a one-time giant tax and then put it in an account and have the billionaires manage that account and go invest it and grow it, because they would be able to grow it at a faster rate than the welfare debt.
But that's never going to happen.
No.
We're going to give them the money.
And as of like 2050, they should start saying like every 10 years they're going to raise the retirement age like 2 years. So because it should actually be, well, I mean, I don't fucking know what it should be. Actually, being like I was an employee once, so taxing isn't an option. But the billionaires that they're going to take the money from will probably, they probably do have the ability to make up for it because they are better stewards of their money than the government. But that's also why they don't want to give their money to government.
Right. There's always two sides to every argument. And as Aaron, as you said that, like I was thinking, there's this whole biohacking movement and longevity that, the human longevity experiment that's been going on for 10 years. And
we're going to live a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy part. There's a duality constantly that's going on because, and this is just the same as billionaires and poor people. You have people that are, trying to live to 120, 150. And then you have people that hope they don't live to 80 because they only have $30,000 in their bank account. And it's the same thing that we're talking about with money. It's like, I mean, there's a ton of people that don't want long health. And the first thing I remember being in Strategic Coach, and when Dan Sullivan brings up the idea of, this age that you want to live to, everybody freaks out. And if you have this conversation, people are always like, why would you want to live to 120? Like, I know a 90-year-old that can barely walk. Well, the idea is that you want to live to 120 if you're healthy. Yeah. It's no different with the money, because you got like wealthy people that are focused on health, positive things that want to live longer and eat healthier and live better. And then you have poor people that are like, I don't want to live longer. It's the same thing with money, the government, and this idea that like, we'll just tax the rich people so that they don't have so much. It's a poor mindset that keeps you from like the same thing. And it's just a human sickness. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's like I said a while back, like, why do we even have to pay taxes? The tax rate has not actually gone up for a long time, and spending has gone out of control. Like, so the tax rate, I used to argue this when we would talk about like Roth IRAs versus regular, because I'm like, look, I'm going to retire 30, 40 years from now. I don't want to get taxed later at a higher tax bracket because it's probably going to be 60, 70%. No, it's not. It ain't going to be high. Like, I used to argue this up until like 6 months ago. I started thinking about this. I bet you the tax rate is never going to be that, because The way that we're taxed now is through inflation. This is all programmed and designed, and all they're doing is just trying to balance it. So money doesn't actually matter anymore.
The inflation is by design. So one soundbite that we can look back at 7 years from now is that I do think that like the way they'll solve it is like AI, technology, and the universal basic income. Because if everybody has the universal basic income, then they don't have to worry about retirement age because everybody's getting the free money.
What do you tell it? What do you tell a 22-year-old person who's starting their career, finishes college, Mike?
22-year-old person starting their career, finishes college.
Has a long-term view, is an entrepreneurial type of mindset, doesn't want to be an employee. Money doesn't matter.
Just figure out how to add value. And I've said this, it's so simple, but make more money.
So answer hasn't changed.
No, make more fake money and invest it in real assets. Because
there you go. Okay, so I just wanted to test the theory.
The only thing that's inflationary resistant are real assets, businesses, real estate, technology, as Aaron's talking about, because technology is actually deflationary. As technology increases, it requires actually less. I agree with what Aaron just said. Technology is deflationary because even though like people are scared about losing jobs, it's deflationary. So it, in theory, should drive the cost of everything down. But that theory doesn't work anymore because money is fake. So we're living in this weird time now where we just have to think about all of our thinking. You guys saw this rent chart. We should pull it up on an episode in the future, but you guys probably saw that chart of, cost of real estate or income versus rents. And it's just this amazing.
Here, I'll pull it up.
It's this amazing argument. When I see that chart, so all these people on TikTok and Instagram and everything else are sharing this.
You're talking about this, right, Mikey?
Yes. Yeah. We don't have to watch it for very long.
Yeah.
But the red line is rent price and the blue line is income. And I mean, it's insanity. It gets worse and worse and worse, this disparity between this. And the crazy thing about this, as you're watching this chart, like there's all these Gen Zers and TikTokers and everything that are like looking at this and they're looking at this from the perspective of whining and complaining. That seems to be my theme today, is whining and complaining.
Yeah.
But everybody's looking at this like, we'll never be able to own a home and shame on the rich and shame on the investors. No, like this is such an argument for investing in real assets. I actually was on an Instagram post this morning to somebody that was bitching about something similar to this, how Gen Z will never be able to buy a house. And I was like, maybe you don't want to buy a house. Like maybe you should think about hopefully switching to the investing on the house side, because pause this for a second. Look at this red rent price increase chart.
We're at 150%. We're as far as March of 2020. This is about to get really big. I stopped it. And
let me point something out on this. The two big dips. Look at 2008, which as a real estate investor is like the worst time in the history of the world to be people are still saying it today. Don't invest in real estate. Be careful. Like 2008. If you go back to 2008, there was this little blip and then it just freaking skyrockets. So even in the dips, like tell me that you shouldn't invest in real assets.
So at 22 years old, your direction is work your ass off and buy real estate every single year.
Or not necessarily just real estate, anything.
Any real asset, businesses, anything cash flow generating.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like if it provides jobs, if it's a real product, I've said this so many times, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, water, shelter. It's that's the simplest, because it doesn't matter what they continue to do. And it honestly doesn't even when what Aaron said comes to pass, and it will. We were talking about this in 2018, 2019, 2020. The buzzword was MMT, modern monetary theory, and everybody's like, that'll never happen. And then COVID hits and modern monetary theory happened, and you never heard the name mentioned almost ever again. The name of it went away, but we actually moved into it. Everybody was getting checks. We're already living in it. And so like what Aaron said, even when that happens and there's a universal basic income, good for the landlords, good for the business owners, good for the people that have in like products that are naturally inflationary resistant.
Yeah. You know, the only reason so to be fair, I didn't own a house I was living in until I was in my 30s. By then, I had actually bought and sold thousands of houses or hundreds of houses probably before I owned one. But I didn't own the house I lived in until I was in my 30s. But the biggest reason we tell people to actually buy their first house is it's the only way to lock in rent forever. Right? Because if you are renting and you look at that chart in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years and 15 years and 20 years,
You
no
mean
matter
the
what,
cost of living, the rent,
no,
fix your cost of living.
thinking just rent. Like if you think about it like rent, like, hey, you're paying $2,000 to live in your house, right? And that chart shows you that if you're renting, that next year it's going to be 2,200, and next year it's going to be 2,400, and 10 years from now it's going to be 6,000. But if you buy a house today, regardless of interest rates, and your payment is $2,000, it's going to be $2,000 forever.
Yep.
And then eventually it goes to zero. Now you could refinance and you can do all these other things and it become a business, but like, why should like a normal average American just buy a house? It's so their rent doesn't go up next year. So their monthly payment doesn't go up next year, even if they only ever buy one and they don't ever do anything funny with it. And they just do that. If nothing else, it's going to stop your rent from getting raised all the time.
Well, let's talk about maybe something much less important, but I think it's an interesting thing that's going on in this $95 billion package that was approved on Tuesday. One of the things they slipped in there was the law to ban TikTok. We've talked about it on this podcast before. Joe Biden on Wednesday signed forcing TikTok to basically get rid of it or face a ban within a year. Setting the course for likely a long, drawn-out legal battle. Why is this good? Why is this bad? The CEO basically said on tape or on some video he posted that, or of course he posted it on TikTok. Rest assured, we aren't going anywhere. We are confident, keep fighting for your rights in the courts. So what do you guys think? You think this is good? Let's stay focused on America. Is this good for America? Is this good for American businesses? Is it good for American sentiment? Is this good for the American mindset, or alternative bad? What do you guys think? Why is this important?
Yeah, I don't think it's I don't think it's a bad thing. You know, I know a lot of people are saying it's an attack on freedom of speech. You know, there's definitely a massive influencer economy on TikTok. That being said, ByteDance being the parent company is, I think what this does ultimately is it sets precedent around foreign adversaries being able to do business in America. I mean, if you go and try and buy farmland around a military base in China, good luck. You go and try and start a massive corporation and business in China, good luck. So I think that it creates precedent that could lead to other things, like some of the issues we have with other foreign adversaries investing and having interests inside of America that could be dangerous. That being said, I can see the argument for how, people are upset and it impacting the influencer economy and it might impact GDP. But at the end of the day, that's all going to funnel back to other American companies. So I think that the concerns that they have over the algorithm and the dangers of what it is doing to influence our youth in a certain age demographic is something that is going to be a win. I do think that's positive. Now, I do think that, there's just as bad of algorithms and other things, inside of other platforms. But it is very interesting to see, right? The House approved the bill banning TikTok the next day, Senate advanced it. And today, Joe Biden signed it. You heard TikTok say, this is an unconstitutional law for this TikTok ban, and we're going to challenge it in court. The fact is we have invested billions of dollars to keep U.S. data safe and our platform free from outside influence and manipulation. And that's just, in my opinion, a flat out lie. So I'm a little bit torn on whether I think this is a good thing or not. I mean, you even hear Elon Musk say, hey, this is a great thing for X. And yet I don't think this is a good thing to do. I've heard even Trump say the same thing. I mean, you look at the guy who actually wrote the bill. I think his name is Michael McCall, who was the author of the bill. he bought up $600,000 in Meta stock before voting on this. I think it was
Oh my God.
sometime in March, right? So it's things like that that I think, disenfranchise the people wanting to support it and the reasons and the incentives behind why this is happening when you've got stuff like that happening. So I think a lot of that, is clouding the facts of how this could benefit, America. But at the end of the day, I think it sets precedent around China, which at the end of the day, we all know is not our friend. And this is something that I don't think there will be a massive downside to seeing TikTok, if they don't comply, being removed from the minds and the, cultural aspects of American society. And that, economy will find its attention and its footing in other areas that are, aligned with, I think, American interests.
Mikey, what do you think? Good, bad? Is it helping? Is it helping people invest in real estate? Is it a big distraction getting people becoming whatever influencers or TikTok income earners? What do you think's going on?
I like what Maddie said. Other than that, I don't care.
Mooch, what do your kids think, man?
Have you guys seen any of my viral TikToks yet?
No.
I'm starting to figure out how to blow that up, and I'm gonna be really sad if they take it away from me now. I'm a little addicted to TikTok. My daughter Maddie crushes it on there. Now they're paying her per view of hers.
Wow.
She's become like a bigger one. There are Charlie D'Amelio made $17.5 million from TikTok last year. Her sister made 10. Addison Rae made 8.5 million. There are people making real money on TikTok and on social media. I guess if it goes away, will there be a TikTok killer or replacement? Will there be a new ad that's spun up where it just gets replaced with US talk or whatever, where we just, copy it and people start over or not? I am conflicted on if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think that if it was anyone other than China owning it, I would think it's horrible to shut down something like this no matter what. Forcing somebody to sell their company, I hate that concept. I hate that idea. And I don't even like us doing it to China. The only part of me that says that it's okay to do it or we should do it is to keep it fair, because they wouldn't let us go do business in their country. Now, in one sense, do we want to do business there? Does it matter? Or are we just worried about like the hearts and minds and the livelihoods of our people here? I don't think there's any risk of having China own TikTok. Just don't. I don't think that it's a threat to our security. If we're going to have them, if China is going to make our phones, I don't think it matters if they also own TikTok. So I think it's kind of silly. I think the fair thing to do, if they're doing it for fairness because we have some business we want to do in China and they won't let us in. But I think it's silly. I think that some people who have built these really crazy livelihoods are going to get it taken away. It's a lesson we all know. Like at any time, like Facebook can take your channel or Instagram can take your stuff away, and you have backup plans. But tell that to Charlie D'Amelio, making $17.5 million a year because she was the first at something and the best at something, and go like, well, hey, you should have had a backup plan. There was no backup plan. Her only thing was TikTok. Right. So, I don't like it. I think my overall vote is I don't like it. We'll see what happens.
You know what I do think is interesting, and I was thinking
And
about
go
this when,
look at my TikTok.
yeah, exactly. I actually think when you talk about all of these people that are using TikTok, and this has nothing to do with my opinion on shutting it down, but I'm surprised that we're not hearing more, uproar about people losing their app. I don't think that people are paying attention or think that it's serious. And I wonder if they actually shut the TikTok app down, how many of this up and coming generation are going to revolt against politicians, because this might be the actual first thing that it actually directly impacts them in their life. And they're like, F you politicians, like
Who took
something
this away
needs to
from me?
change. I would be scared if I was a politician on what the
This is going to
recourse
hurt
is
Joe
gonna be.
Biden. I mean, his
It
youth
will.
is going to be pissed. And if anything, here's what I say though. These young influencers that are making a grip of money, I don't feel sorry for Charlie D'Amelio and all these girls. If they're going to
I
get
do.
it taken away, go take your $30 million, and guess what they're going to do? they're going to go create something that's going to be owned by American individuals, and they're going to find a way to drive some new innovation. So I understand, Mooch. I know you like your views and you're trying to blow up, and I get it. But at the end of the day, I think there's gonna be something that results from this if they really do fully go through with it, which I still think there's a lot of red tape that needs to get unraveled, that is going to create something really cool out of it. I'm always a believer in that, of like, when something bad happens that is a negative impact, innovators are forced to evolve, and they're going to go and innovate, and they're going to do something cool with it. So I already see people starting to have whispers around Vine, and Vine is starting to kick back up now, but now it's a new version of Vine. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. But I love these kind of conversations, because it does remind you that as much as we all think we're in control in a lot of areas of our life, you're really not.
Now, to stack onto Mike's, let me just stack onto Mike's point really quick. Like it is really fascinating to think of if one day people wake up and the app just doesn't work anymore. Like 3 weeks ago, Instagram didn't work for like 4 hours and the internet almost died. But like, if all of a sudden the app doesn't work anymore, it will, I cannot think of another time of any history that I've ever seen that something so big and so adopted was taken away in an instant through government intervention. It'll definitely be something that gets written about in history books forever. It is definitely a crazy precedent if all of a sudden one day it just isn't there anymore, and it was something more like it feels more like a utility, like water, electrical power. It feels more like the hierarchy than it should, maybe.
For the youth, it is. And I'm curious to see how it's going to impact Joe Biden. If anything, my guess is, and I'm surprised he even signed the bill, because that does impact his youth and the user, the small base of those individuals. And what is going to happen? I'm going to bet that the youth are going to vote in droves like they never have before. And instead of the 80 something million votes that Joe Biden got, he's going to get 100 million, because they're so happy to back him.
Guys, this is a border issue.
Let Mikey close it out, though. Mikey had something that we interrupted on.
Sorry, it took me a minute to get Maddie's joke there. I didn't want to move on from that too fast. That was good. I was just gonna.
Yeah.
If they shut TikTok down and 50% of a generation takes their own life, that's just going to crush Social Security, because they're the future payers of Social Security. Like, these guys are going to lose their crap. And I just don't think that they think it's serious. And I don't know, it's a problem.
Yeah. All right. So before we wrap up, I just want to share this one story. I don't know if anybody was following the Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney boxing match over the course of the last few months, but a really interesting story. Both of these guys, top of their game, right? And they're trying to promote the fight. Well, a couple months back, Ryan Garcia starts acting really out there, starts saying really outlandish things, saying he got kidnapped and taken somewhere to, I forget what they called the Grove, where kids are getting, bad things done to them, and the Illuminati. And he's on camera drinking during his camp. He's on camera smoking. He's on camera during interviews, just saying really wild, outlandish things. And so over the course of his training camp, more and more people are going, dude, this guy is legitimately losing his mind. He's acting weird on camera. He's saying things. He's doing all of these wild things. And so the odds against him going into the fight were the most lopsided they've ever been for a fight like this.
You mean betting odds? You mean betting odds?
So what does he do? He goes and puts $2 million on himself to win. He wins the fight. He earns $12 million on his bet, in addition to his fight money of $38 million, and walks away with $50 million. And after the interview, basically goes out to say, 3 months ago, I'm on camera with my crew, and I document that I'm going to just try and trick everybody that I'm literally losing my mind. And I'm going to do this, this, and this, and the odds are going to reflect it because of this. And he trains his ass off. He shows up to weigh-ins. He's drinking a beer during weigh-ins. He misses weight. He does all of these outlandish things, when at the end of the day, he was ultimately pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. And he just went on to say, I believed in God, I believed in myself, and I worked my ass off, and I let everybody else rip and tear me down and believe that I was crazy. And guess
So
who's
cool.
laughing all the way to the bank?
So cool.
Should that be illegal?
It's illegal if you're betting against yourself to lose. If you're betting against yourself to win, then at the end of the day, the odds makers and the guys that are out there with private investigators and doing all the research and all the information that helps them set the odds before those
Yeah.
fights happen, that's all fair game. So
Amazing story.
Is what
ama-
illegal? Is tricking people illegal? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, well, so because it's like, I mean, sports, but like fixing games is illegal. Like fixing like if they said if a coach, if somebody, so one of the there was an NBA player that got essentially can't play in the NBA anymore because he was faking an injury
Yeah.
before the game, so they would change the odds against his team. So they would like, and then he would end up playing. Right. So he would like wear knee braces acting like he's hurt. So they would change the spread. And so, and I don't know the details, but something different. So like, yeah, like when you're, it's just a curious, I mean, the story is fascinating and awesome with him, but it begs that question of that at what, I think you're right, Maddie, too. Like hey, he wasn't actually like faking an injury. He was like being crazy. And then he made people stop believing in him. But I also wonder if somebody's going to go like, oh no, we got tricked because the guy that wore a knee brace when he didn't need it, so then they lowered the spread, could no longer play in the NBA anymore. There's maybe more to it than that, but that
there
was
is more. There is more to it than that.
yeah, there was more to it than that. But that being said, right, I still think it's one of those things where, you know, if you're going to bet and gamble, right, I think there's rules and parameters that they've set. This was not one of them. So this might actually lead to more discussions and conversations around that, right? And might lead to some good stuff, might lead to some bad stuff. But all I know is dude is laughing all the way to the bank and he won big. And he's now looked at as one of the most iconic promoters of all time in boxing because of
It's
what
amazing.
Do
You figure out the rules of the game, and then you go try to win the game. We don't make the rules. We figure out what the parameters are and how do you make the most money within the rules. And he did that.
Yep.
Do you think that's what Sleepy Joe is doing?
Oh God.
No.
When is
Do you
he
think
coming
he's
back?
duping us all? You think he's duping us all?
I'm
We're just
telling you,
waiting,
100 million
we're
voters.
waiting for
It's
November
coming. He's
3rd.
gonna
That's
get
what
it.
we're waiting. He's going to knock out. He's going to win the fight on November 3rd, everybody.
He's going to get 400 million vote against Trump's 200 and a population of 300.
That may actually get us canceled. Well, there you go, guys. Another amazing episode. Episode number 35. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, for leaving us comments. Please make sure you continue to engage with us and continue to like. Make sure you click that like button. Make sure you click that subscribe button. We got to keep ranking up those subscribe buttons to help us be and continue to be the #1 new business podcast on all of the internet, especially TikTok. Love you guys so much. From Maddie Atchison, Mike Ayala, and Aaron Amujastegi Amashish Nathu. Thank you so much for listening to the King's Table Podcast. Peace.
Peace.
See you next time.